Imagine the pain starts tonight. You are far from any hospital. There is no ambulance, there is no surgeon, there is no medicine cabinet, there is only darkness, there is only firelight, there is only the sound of animals outside the camp, and there is a baby trying to enter the world. What would you do? Most people think they know the answer. Ancient women simply suffered. They gave birth alone, they died often, and humanity somehow crawled forward anyway. That answer feels obvious. It is also too simple, because human birth was never just a test of one body. It was a test of an entire group. A woman in labor was not only carrying a baby, she was carrying the future of her band. One new child could mean another pair of hands, another hunter, another gatherer, another keeper of stories, another person to remember where water waited during drought. So when labor began, the whole community had a reason to care. This is the first layer of the story. Ancient birth was not primitive chaos. It was social survival. Now peel back another layer. Human birth is strange, dangerously strange. Compared with many other primates, human babies have large heads. Human mothers also walk upright. That creates a difficult passage. The pelvis must support walking, but it must also allow a baby through. And the baby does not simply slide out. It turns, it twists, it rotates through the birth canal. That means birth could become dangerous very quickly. A long labor could exhaust a mother. Heavy bleeding could kill her. A poorly positioned baby could threaten both lives. Infection could arrive after the birth. A retained placenta could become an emergency. This is why the popular survival fantasy gets it wrong. The story is not that ancient mothers were tougher. The story is that they were rarely meant to face this moment alone. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans survived because help became part of reproduction. Not optional help, essential help. Anthropologists call one version of this pattern cooperative breeding. It means raising children is not only the work of two parents. Grandmothers can help, sisters can help, aunts can help, older children can help, friends can help. The group helps feed, protect, carry, teach, and watch the young. That support matters because human children stay dependent for an unusually long time. They cannot run with the group after a few days. They cannot feed themselves after a few weeks. They need years. So human evolution did not only shape babies with big brains, it shaped communities built to keep those brains alive. Now think about pregnancy in a prehistoric camp. The first false answer is that pregnancy made a woman useless. The deeper reveal is almost the opposite. A pregnant woman was valuable. She knew places, she gathered food, she processed plants, she cared for children, she held memories no stone tool could store. But her work could change as birth came closer. Others could carry more. Others could fetch water. Others could watch children. Others could bring food. This was not charity. It was risk management. A group that protected pregnant women had more surviving mothers. More surviving mothers meant more surviving children. And more surviving children meant the group endured. Evolution does not reward toughness alone. It rewards systems that keep people alive. Then comes the question everyone asks. Who actually helped during birth? We do not have written birth manuals from Ice Age camps. We do not have a prehistoric hospital record. Bones and stone rarely preserve the quiet knowledge of hands. That absence matters. It means we should be careful. We cannot point to one ancient skeleton and declare her the first midwife. We cannot reconstruct every ritual with certainty, but we can follow clues. We can study human biology. We can study the deep importance of kin support. We can study traditional birth knowledge recorded in many living cultures. We can study how essential continuous support remains in modern labor. And these clues point toward one powerful conclusion. Human birth likely depended on experienced assistance very early in our history. Not necessarily a formal job title. Not necessarily one person in every camp, but experienced people. People who had seen labor before. People who knew what normal looked like. People who could notice when something was wrong. People who could offer strength, warmth, water, food, touch, and calm. That is the origin story of the midwife. Not a building, not a uniform, not a certificate. A person who knew. A person who stayed. A person who helped another person cross a dangerous threshold. Picture the camp now. The contractions are closer. The mother cannot ignore them anymore. The group does not announce a clinical emergency. They respond to a human emergency. A protected place is found. Maybe it is a shelter. Maybe it is near a familiar fire. Maybe it is a quieter edge of camp. The exact setting could differ by season, landscape, culture, danger, and weather. There was no single ancient birth room. There were thousands of human solutions. But the goal stayed the same: warmth, privacy, water, light, safety, trusted people nearby. This is where another false answer appears. We imagine ancient birth as a woman flat on her back, but lying flat is not the only human birth position. It may not even be the most intuitive one without a bed. People can labor standing. They can kneel. They can squat. They can lean against another person. They can hold a branch. They can grip a rope. They can shift position again and again. Movement gives a laboring person options. Comfort matters. Control matters. Gravity can matter. Modern evidence also finds benefits from continuous labor support, including shorter labors on average and lower likelihood of some interventions in studied settings. That does not mean ancient birth was safer than modern medical care. It was not. That distinction is critical. A normal birth can be powerful, but a complicated birth can become deadly without skilled clinical treatment. Modern obstetrics saves lives. Antibiotics save lives. Blood transfusions save lives. Emergency surgery saves lives. Treatment for high blood pressure saves lives. Neonatal resuscitation saves lives. The ancient system was not a replacement for medicine. It was humanity's best answer before medicine had these tools, and it had one tool that technology cannot fully replace: presence. Imagine one woman kneeling close. She watches the mother's face. She hears the change in breathing. She notices fear before fear becomes panic. Another person supports the mother's weight. Another keeps the fire alive. Another brings water. Another keeps older children away. Another waits outside. Another listens for danger. The laboring woman does not need to explain every sensation. The people around her already know her. They know her voice. They know her history. They know who she trusts. They know when silence means focus. They know when silence means fear. That familiarity may have been as valuable as any physical tool, because birth is not only mechanical, it is hormonal, it is emotional, it is social. Fear can change breathing. Fear can tighten the body. Fear can make time feel endless. Safety can change the whole room. Or in the ancient world, the whole circle around a fire. Then the baby arrives, and the danger is not over. That is another layer people forget. Birth has an after. The newborn must breathe. The mother must deliver the placenta. Bleeding must slow. Warmth must be maintained. Feeding must begin. Someone must watch. Someone must rest. Someone must protect both mother and baby. Modern guidelines recognize that waiting briefly before clamping the umbilical cord can benefit many babies who do not need immediate resuscitation. Who didn't? But we should not turn that modern finding into a fantasy claim about the distant past. Ancient communities may have had many cord-cutting customs. Those practices likely varied enormously. Some knowledge was effective, some knowledge was limited. Some births ended in grief, and grief was part of ancient human life too. Archaeology has found burials of infants and children across deep time. These discoveries do not tell us every emotion, but they do tell us something important. Small lives were not always discarded from memory. People sometimes buried them carefully. People sometimes marked loss. People sometimes carried love into the ground. This is the part that breaks the cold stereotype of prehistory. Ancient people were not emotionless survival machines. They mourned. They feared. They hoped. They held each other together. And after a successful birth, the most important work may have begun. Recovery. A new mother needed calories. She needed water. She needed sleep. She needed protection. She needed help with older children. She needed someone to gather while she stayed close to the infant. This is where grandmothers may have changed human history. In many human societies, older women can contribute food, care, knowledge, and protection. That support can make a difference for young children and mothers. The grandmother hypothesis argues that this kind of help may even connect to the unusual human pattern of long life after reproduction. The idea remains debated in its details, but the larger point is hard to miss. Humans survive through generations working together. A baby is born into a network, not an empty wilderness. Now peel the final layer. Why do we know so little about this? Why does the prehistoric record seem full of stone points, animal bones, hunters, and caves? Where are the birth stories? Where are the midwives? Where are the women who knew which posture eased pain, which food restored strength, which relative could calm a frightened mother, which sign meant the labor had changed? Much of this knowledge was spoken, shown, repeated, held in memory. It moved from person to person, from experienced hands to younger hands, from grandmother to daughter, from friend to friend. That makes it hard to recover. A stone blade can survive 50,000 years. A whispered instruction cannot. A burial can survive. A comforting touch cannot. A cave painting can survive. A labor song cannot. So the missing half of human history may not be missing because it never mattered. It may be missing because it lived in people. It lived in practice. It lived in care. It lived in knowledge that was never written down. And when cultures were disrupted, displaced, colonized, or forced to abandon their languages and customs, some of that knowledge could disappear fast. Not because it was worthless, because oral knowledge is fragile when the chain is broken. Still, the chain was never completely broken. It survives in midwifery. It survives in birth companions. It survives in doulas. It survives in families who bring food after a baby is born. It survives whenever one person says, "I am here." That is the real evolutionary reveal. Humans did not conquer childbirth alone. They built social worlds around it. They created circles of protection around the people doing the hardest work. They turned vulnerability into cooperation. They turned fear into a shared responsibility. And they gave the next generation a chance. So return to the first question. You are in a prehistoric camp. The pain begins. There is no hospital. There is no painkiller. There is no doctor. What happens next? Not nothing. People gather. Hands reach out. A fire is kept alive. Water is carried. Food is shared. Experience moves into the circle. And one woman facing the most dangerous moment of her life discovers the reason our species survived. She is not alone.